So when I started my business, I put my website on a platform I wasn't used to. And the more and more I played with this platform, the more I realized I'm just not comfortable with it. Why am I beating my head against a wall? I'll switch it to the platform that I'm more comfortable with. So I went to the new platform, I set up my website there, but I kept the old platform because I hadn't finalized everything on the new one. So I thought, I'm going to keep this just to make sure I have everything I need. But then the day of the renewal on the old platform came up, and I had forgotten to shut it off because I kept putting it off and putting it off, and I just needed to launch the thing. And then the day after I get charged, I remember, oh yeah, I need to shut that off. And I go see that I was charged another $100 because I'd been procrastinating shutting off that system. And it was a costly mistake at this point.
Well, that's no good. Welcome to Diary of a Worthy Pursuit,
where we talk about how to get what you truly want in life and in business.
And today we're talking about that little thing that we all do, how to stop procrastinating.
This, I feel like, hits us at so many points in our lives.
Oh my gosh.
And unfortunately, even when you feel like you're overcoming it, you still have these little things that pop up. But I would have defined myself as the ultimate procrastinator growing up. Like, if there was a paper due or a project, I did it the night before. You know, if I had a term paper in college, I would have all the coffee or whatever and stay up until 4 a.m. and write it. And I told myself it was because I needed to get in that creative space. I needed to have this spot. But really, it was just because I wasn't ready to start. So I've become better in my life, but there's certainly little things I can still work on. How about you? Were you ever a procrastinator?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, in college, everything was late. Or I guess right on time, like with the tire squealing as you pull in kind of thing.
Right.
I still remember dropping off this art thing, because I went to school for graphic design. I dropped off this art thing to my professor at her little closet of an office. And I remember the door was locked, and I had to tuck it under the door. And it was right before summer break. Like, I was leaving for school was done, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to the little professor person next door, and I'm like, hey, where is she? And he's like, she's having a kid, so she's done for the year.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, so I don't know what that's going to do to my grade because she can't grade it.
The project that I just slipped under her door.
You can't, I can't drop it off at the hospital or something like that. So it's one of those and then you get in that blame thing. Whose fault is it?
Right.
Right? In the end, it's mine because I mean, the deadline was whatever. I made it by the deadline. But in the end, I didn't account for life happening, whether it was mine or hers or both. So it's one of those, I wanted to be mad, but you can't be mad, dude. You weren't organized.
Well, and I think that there's different costs here, right? So the story I shared, it did cost me $100. Cash, which is legit. But sometimes it's not a monetary cost. It just happens in other ways. You know, there's times where I found myself doing this today. My grandma hasn't been feeling really great. And so I'm getting these updates from my sister who lives 10 minutes away from her. And so I keep saying, I need to call her. I need to call her and check in. And now again, I was in the car on the way here today, had time to call her and didn't. So it's one of these things where it's like, there's also relationship capital that comes through in some of these things that, that's on the line. That, it's not just monetary, which still hurts, but, even just procrastinating, putting off calling my grandma or sending that text to someone that you haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about stuff like that because there's no real deadline.
Right.
Except a self-imposed one, right? No one's going to say, hey, it's going to cost you another $500 because you didn't call your grandma by May 3rd or whatever.
Well, maybe that would motivate me to do it.
Right?
Yeah.
So without a deadline, it's very easy for you to say next or someday,
right,
or just promise yourself it's going to happen. And then you raise an interesting point because of fallout, relationship, health. Right. How many people made that New Year's resolution and they said, this year I'm going to work on whatever, losing weight, feeling better, whatever. But if they didn't put a deadline on it, and even if they did put a deadline on it, but they didn't tell anyone or didn't have anything to keep them accountable, it's very easy to just kick that can down the road.
Right. I was just listening to a podcast that was talking about how health appointments are one of the things that we all procrastinate the most. So we know we need to schedule that appointment, whatever it is. We need to go see the doctor for that test, or we just need to go get that checkup, or we need to go to the dentist, or whatever it is. But we all put it off. And it's so interesting. And so we'll dive into a little bit of maybe why that's the case.
I just read something about the medication, like how people take medication.
Okay.
If you have 100 people, it was something like 60% of them won't take the pills on a certain time.
Oh, really?
But if you take their pets, they will give their pets their pills on time.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
So they treat their pets better than they treat themselves.
Wow, that speaks a lot, I think, to what's going on.
Yeah, and this was about
mental health.
Oh my gosh, this was in Jordan Peterson's book.
Oh, okay.
12 Rules for Life or something like that. He was talking about people getting, kidney transfusion.
Okay. Oh, dialysis.
Dialysis.
Yeah.
So they have to go to dialysis every day until they get another kidney.
Sure.
So all the things that have to happen to get another kidney. But the kidney is typically rejected by the body, so you got to take pills to prevent this rejection. And 60% of the people don't routinely take the pills they're supposed to.
Oh my goodness.
So like they go to dialysis so they don't die.
Right.
But the pills, they're like,
Well, and then you talk about the cost of procrastination. Yeah. That's a huge one. Right.
Huge. So it's kind of interesting because from a psychological level, like what in the world is happening there?
Right. Well, and let's dive into that a little bit here. So our first tip, though, to stop procrastinating is first to identify a few things. When you have the most energy, and then also what's distracting you. Mm-hmm. So when you have the most energy, there's something called energy archetypes out there.
All right.
So it's this idea of when are you at your most productive, or when do you have your most energy? When I was younger, it was definitely not in the morning. You know, I liked all the sleep I could get, even through college, and I got the most done from like 7 to 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And maybe that's just the life of a college student. I worked a few jobs and whatever, and that's just when I was available. So that's when I would do homework or projects or whatever. But now at this point in my life and in my business, I have a routine, and I find that I am most productive and most focused between about 9 and 11 a.m.
Oh,
so
wow.
I try to design my day such that everything I need to do for my family or, you know, for my mental health or whatever happens before 9, so I can sit down at 9 a.m. and from 9 to 11 do the important work.
Yeah, interesting. That's a small window.
It is a small window.
You got 2/24, so would that be 1/12 of the day?
Right. Well, I just have to be really focused in those 2 hours.
All right. Just pound, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
That's
exactly.
interesting. I like that idea, though.
Well, and it really forces you, in a way, it gets rid of this whole like willpower idea.
Yeah.
It helps you schedule when you need to do meaningful work, because I heard someone saying that procrastination is really just the subconscious's way of trying to delay stress.
Oh.
So, I mean, think about things that you procrastinate, right? So if I procrastinate doing a project, it's because I know that project might be hard and my brain's going to have to work, and I'm not ready for that stress. So maybe I'll scroll on my phone. That's not stressful. My brain doesn't have to work for that. Or, you know,
it's probably
maybe
the opposite, right? You
yeah,
get that
right?
dopamine hit.
I'm not thinking at all. Or maybe I'm procrastinating calling my grandma because I don't want the stress of the emotional baggage of knowing that my grandma's just getting older.
All right.
And that, you know, her health is going to be an issue from here on out. And so it's that avoidance of stress that I think is kind of the subconscious thing that's at the root of why a lot of us procrastinate.
Interesting. I like that idea. Or I like the definition
it's a theory,
of that.
Right.
Yeah. But also with your energy window, you're
Yeah.
giving yourself a deadline.
I am giving myself a deadline.
I got to get this done by 11,
yes,
otherwise
it's
train falls off
helpful.
the tracks.
Right. And I mean, sometimes you need padding, right? You don't know what's going to happen in life. But I think that it gets rid of the issue of willpower. And it also allows me to say, well, this is the time that I have, so I need to use it. Because otherwise, we find that the task, we talked about this before, but the task can expand to, you know, whatever time I give it.
Right.
So if I say I need to get this done in 2 hours, it's a lot easier to focus on it for those 2 hours, because then I know I need to move on to something else.
Right.
So I keep coming back to willpower, but I don't think willpower works.
Fair.
Because that comes to me making a decision every day that I'm going to do this. Well, if it's my schedule, if it's my routine, I don't need willpower.
Right.
It's my schedule. This is just what I do on these days, and there's no decision to it. This is this, and then I move on to this.
I think there's a point of you governing yourself. Because I hear willpower, I feel like people are like, I'm just going to will this to happen, right?
Right.
Will
Push
my
through
body
it.
to do something. But I like to look at it more as like, I am giving myself the opportunity, and I'm telling myself this is going to happen. I'm not giving my body the choice. And I feel like, from me, when I tell myself something like that, it makes you kind of the leader of your own destiny kind of thing, instead of letting your body say, we're just going to scroll a little bit.
Right.
Something like that. There's a rule that I saw, I don't remember where it's from, but it said the pain of discipline is less than the pain of regret.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, you have to be disciplined too. Let's just say you want to improve your health, right? Lose weight, run a 100-mile race, whatever. Training and doing all that kind of stuff is painful.
Right.
Right? It's a pain in the butt to work out for a lot of people. It's difficult. You can't just stay in bed and scroll, right? So there's that pain.
Right.
But then there's also years or months or even weeks down the road, if you didn't do that training, then you're still waiting in bed, and now it hurts to get out of bed.
Right.
So that regret, like I coulda, shoulda, woulda, back then, like which is more pain? And the rule is that discipline is less pain than the
Right.
regret.
But I like the word discipline better than the word willpower, because I feel like discipline shows that self-leadership almost. It's that idea of I have complete ownership of, Jocko Willink talks about this extreme ownership idea. I have extreme ownership over what I do, and it's taking control almost. Whereas willpower makes me think, well, I can do that or not do that. I get to decide today. And maybe that's my interpretation of the word. But discipline I like because it does help you feel that this is just something that you do now. This is who you are.
That you have the power.
Right.
Versus with willpower, you feel like, how much willpower do you have? Whatever I was born with.
Right.
I guess I'm out.
Or I used it all today, and now it's dinner, and I'm going to go eat that thing that I know is unhealthy for me because I'm out of willpower.
Bag of Oreos for dinner again, right?
Right, exactly. All right, so the second thing we recommend to help you stop procrastinating is to cut your list. So this is more in particular to the things that you feel like you have to get done at work, right? Or maybe even at home. I guess I do this sometimes on Saturdays where I wake up Saturday morning, I got my coffee, I'm sitting down and I'm writing out all the things I want to get done today, and then I look at the list and I'm like, oh, well, that's 20 items long. That's completely unrealistic when I have 2 young kids running around.
Right.
Even if I didn't, it'd be unrealistic. So there's a lot of power in restriction. And within my full focus coaching, what I help my clients do is try to identify 3 things. If you did nothing else today, what 3 things do you need to do to make sure that today was a success?
Perfect. I like that. I do the same thing.
Yeah, and it helps you feel more accomplished at the end of the day, and it doesn't stop you from doing more than those 3 things. But if you get those 3 things done, then anything else you do is gravy.
And you're not trying to keep a promise that you can't keep.
Yeah.
Even that you know that you can't keep.
Right.
I got my list of 15 things, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to do all those.
Well, and then you feel even more, even if you cross off 5 or 6 things, you feel stressed because you look at what you didn't get done.
Right.
Than what you did. And I think that only adds to the stress of having the list, right? So it's easier to procrastinate when you're like, oh, there's just so much I got to do. Oh, let me go check email over here because that's so much easier. Every email is a check that I get to be, a dopamine hit. I get to be done.
Activity versus accomplishment, right?
Yes.
I was busy.
But did I get the right things done?
Right? Because you work all day and you're like, I was totally busy all day. What did I get done?
That's the worst feeling, especially when you're running a business or a department and you have goals you're trying to hit and you just think, I didn't do anything today to move me forward.
Right. I remember working at a graphic design place and we had to account for every single minute of our day so they could bill it to clients. And I remember thinking that last hour, what did I do? I was skipping around to 50 different clients or whatever, and it'd be very tough to say, it's 30 seconds here, 15 seconds there.
Right.
I scratched my head for 20 seconds not knowing what to do.
How do I bill that?
Yeah, or that part was crazy stressful.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many clients got billed stuff that they either shouldn't or got underbilled because I didn't even remember that I touched their stuff. It's crazy. But it also gave you a little bit of insight saying okay, it almost forced productivity, which wasn't necessarily good because what you're putting out then wasn't that great. But it's interesting that you had to think back, okay, what did I do? Just thinking back, what did I eat kind of thing. Did I go towards my goals with what I ate? Did I go towards my goals with what I did? And all those things. So it was kind of nice to look back at that. There was a tiny golden nugget there.
Right. Well, I think that this pulls up another piece here that we've talked about, which is doing an after-action review. So at the end of your day, you can sit there and say, okay, what worked and what didn't? This is something that the military does all the time after every mission. What went well, what didn't? And then it's this idea of, it's the KISS principle, but rather than keep it simple, silly, it's keep, improve, start, and stop.
All right.
So when you go back and look at your day, you can say, okay, I did a morning routine and that really helped me center well, so I want to keep doing that. I need to improve how much time I'm spending on projects. Maybe projects are taking me a half hour, and it really doesn't need to. It could probably take me 15 minutes.
Sure.
So I'm going to improve that.
All right.
Maybe you say, I want to start scheduling meaningful work because I feel like I never actually get there. So I need to put it in my calendar and protect it.
Interesting.
And then the stop might be like, I need to stop scrolling on my phone, and maybe that's things like setting boundaries around your apps. There's really great timers that will shut down certain apps on your phone after you've spent so much time on them.
Oh, interesting.
I have one on Instagram that allows me 30 minutes. And so and I get a warning every time I open the app that says, like, you have 12 minutes left. And then it will
it accumulates over the day.
It accumulates over the day.
Oh,
and
wow.
then
So not just one sitting, okay.
You've used your Instagram time for today, and it will shut down the
Oh,
app.
nice.
Yeah. So it almost forces
Sure.
that, like, okay, you have to shut off the dopamine hits and do what's meaningful.
Get to work. Get that dopamine.
Yeah, right?
Interesting. What else we have here? We have the accountability.
Yeah, so another way to stop procrastinating is to have someone else hold you accountable. And I think this is one of the reasons why having a community is so nice. So if you're going forward, it's nice to have people there. One, because you can tell them, this is what I'm trying to do by this date. And then, you could check in with me. So if I said, hey, James, I'm going to make 20 sales calls before the end of the week. Say, okay, cool, I got you. And then you might text me on Thursday and say, hey, Jenna, how those sales calls coming? And be like, oh, I've only done 5. And I've got another work day to go. And I say, I really need to step it up, right? So that accountability can really help me from procrastinating. Because a sales call might be pretty stressful for me, especially if you're cold calling for your business, trying to get new clients. But having you hold me accountable, now there's this extrinsic accountability where I can't make an excuse to you.
You don't want to say no.
I can make an excuse to myself, but not to you.
Yeah. I had, when I did business planning classes, I would have all the students get in groups of 3 or 4, depending upon the size of the class, and I would have them write out a goal towards getting their business done. Okay. Whether that was a section in the business plan, looking up marketing stuff, like this is way super green stuff. Then I had them write out a date, and then I had them exchange contact information. So I get in on a group chat, and then I said, you said you're going to do this, let's say by May 6th at 3 p.m. So May 7th at 9 a.m., there's going to be a text that you get from all 3 people in this group to you, and all it's going to ask is, did you do your stuff? And the rule was, how many excuses do you think they care about? None. Right? I want you to say yes or no. And I don't want you to say no.
Right.
But the idea is that nobody cares about your excuses.
Right.
You're just telling your excuses to fill some void in your head that these people don't have. And then we took it a little step further. Instead of you say you didn't get your stuff done, what does that do to the other 3 people? Now you're giving them permission, subconsciously, that they don't get their stuff done. So not only are you letting yourself down, you're letting the other 3 people in your group down. So how much is the world worse because you found these excuses, right?
Yeah.
And what are these excuses? Like, what are they truly? Because I say there's no excuses. No excuse is acceptable. You could have reasons, right? I got in a car accident, I broke my leg, I had a stroke, right? I'll allow that. I understand why you didn't get your stuff done. But just about anything else is an excuse, and no one's going to accept those. And it's interesting because you'd have some people that fell off the bus. They just decided not to come back to class.
because of the accountability. Right?
There's some people that would ghost their crew because they were too embarrassed to say no. And it's funny because they would come to class and they'd be like, you never responded. Did you do your stuff?
Yeah.
Like, we totally know you didn't do your stuff. Right? You're not going to be excited about saying no.
No.
The yeses come, and then you can see like certain people would advance and certain people would decline. And then you talk about them and say, or talk to them about this and say, okay, your goal was to finish the financial aspect portion of your business plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that you had to do, right? Like 20 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
And let's just say that you actually did start your business. If you messed up this section, what's going to happen when it's multiplied over here and you have to do your taxes or something like that?
Yeah.
Like you got to learn how to do this little tiny stuff so that you can build up and grow and get stronger to do the big stuff.
Right.
So when people kind of open their eyes. But it was interesting how a lot of people with that accountability would do it. There's a deadline, all that kind of stuff. And they set the goal. It could have been tie their left shoe. I didn't care what it was. Right? They could have made it crazy simple.
Exactly.
But in the end, they knew which goal, if they actually accomplished it, was going to bring them farther.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very cool. And then I had them do the thing where they write a letter to themselves.
Oh, what's that about?
So you have them write their goal. They write a letter to themselves. So it'd be like, Dear James, I'm going to, make $5 billion by June 30th, whatever it is, right? And then they seal it up. They address it. I stamp it. And then in 6 months, I mail it to them.
Oh, wow.
So then they receive a letter to themselves, from themselves, that says, hey, did you do your stuff? Did you accomplish this goal that they filled in?
Self-accountability.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, well, especially because there's so many reasons that we set these goals. And so other people holding you accountable, you're like, yeah, life happened, whatever. But that self-accountability is really cool. 2 things on that, though, for folks who maybe don't have a community in that way. One, if you are solo, there are actually services out there now where you can sign up and say, okay, you're going to be my accountability buddy, and we're going to both sit here for an hour together on Zoom. And I'm going to work on this, and you're going to work on that. And you sit on Zoom for an hour together, like you're in a coffee shop or you're in an office.
Oh, wow.
And so they can see that you don't get up. They can see that you're not scrolling on your phone. They can, all these things. And maybe you're not really looking because you're trying to work on your own stuff. Like, don't look on your partner's paper. Mm-hmm. But it's this idea that someone is there watching you. So you have to focus for that. So I think you can just Google accountability buddy service or something. Yeah. And then you can pair up with somebody and you just get randomly matched, right? But the idea is
that is clever.
They're holding you accountable if you don't have that community.
And it's so funny because that's so simple, right?
So simple.
That's just some person being across the internet, having a screen open that as long as it's not black with just their name on it, you're doing your stuff. That is so funny.
But it's that pressure. It's that pressure that someone else is making sure that we get it done, which is so helpful.
Oh my gosh.
Then when you're in a team situation, when I was managing a creative team, we would do this where at the beginning of every week, we'd have a check-in meeting and say, okay, what are the 3 things that you absolutely need to get done this week? And then we would say, okay, that sounds great. And then come Friday, we would say, how much progress did you make on those 3 things? Right. Because then one, as a leader of a team, either your business or you're managing a team, you understand what they did get done. So it gives you more insight into what your people are actually doing if you don't have as much day-to-day interaction. Mm-hmm. But it also then gives you the opportunity, one, to give them pressure because I have to say in front of the whole team whether or not they got it done. But then you always ask the follow-up question of, well, what got in your way? If they say no, like, I only got to 50%. Cool. What was the hurdle that you couldn't overcome to get it done today? And we also had check-ins on Wednesdays. So we would say, how are those 3 things going? Have you come up against any hurdles? Because we want to try to address them before you get to Friday and you should have got the thing done that you didn't.
Right.
But one of the things that I find is resistance. So if you're leading a team and they're procrastinating or they're not completing something, it's because there's some kind of resistance. Either they don't have some.
Okay.
Either they don't have the answer, that they need, like, I need this logo to finish this project for the client. I don't have the logo, so I can't do the project, right? Well, don't wait until Friday to tell me that you don't have what you need to complete the thing.
Right.
Tell me on Monday that I need to do this thing, but here's what I need.
It's not my fault.
Right. No excuses. So there's opportunities like that when you have accountability, but then there's also this idea of, you're just laying it all out there, and the team gets to see how productive you really are.
All right.
And I think that there's pressure, good stress to that.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair. It's interesting that you talk about that because when I do sales stuff, I'll get responses from people that are just like, make up some arbitrary event or thing that has to happen before they make a decision on something that has nothing to do with that arbitrary event.
Oh, interesting.
So it'll be like, I'll do that after Christmas, or I'll do that after New Year's, or I'll do that after the third Tuesday of a full moon, or something like that, right? I'll do that after my kids get their teeth pulled, or something like that.
Right.
It's just like, that has absolutely no relevance. And you want to say that, like, dude, you're just kicking the can down the road for no reason.
Yeah.
There's certain things, like I'll do that after vacation, whatever, sure, because it's the day before vacation. But like, your vacation's in 6 months. That should have no relevance to what you're doing now.
Right.
But they'll make up that excuse to say like,
Right. Well, and again, it's that idea, the more I think about this, the more that I feel like it really rings true of, I have too much stress on me right now, so I can't also handle the stress of doing that thing that I said I would do, right? So, but once we actually attack the thing that we say we want to do, it usually takes us less time and is easier than we thought it would
totally.
be anyway.
Yeah.
So all that procrastination, you're like, why did I even put that stress on myself when
Right.
it didn't need to be that big?
It's funny that you mentioned the sales stuff on Friday, because with the call answering service, we see the sales calls go up on Friday.
Oh, interesting.
I even had a sales call come in, I think it was 6:30 at night on a Friday.
Okay.
It was a guy from California. And he calls up and I'm like, dude, I'm done. I'm done. It's Friday after 5, like, whatever it is can wait till Monday. What are you doing calling me now? And it dawned on me that he wasn't done yet.
Right.
But I was probably on his list that he didn't call all week, but he had to make that quota. So it's funny,
Right.
like, he had to just bang it out. And I'm like, no, dude, no. Even if it was yes at this moment,
Right.
no.
Well, and so to that point, I guess a little differently, but there are certainly times where, before we wrap here, distraction can be a good thing. Procrastination can be a good thing. So if you're a creative out there at all, there are times where like you just need to get out your ugly first draft. Let's say you're a writer. You need to get out your ugly first draft of whatever you're working on, and then you need to step away. And maybe that's the most productive you can be. You go for a walk, you go do the thing, you come back, and you come back more focused. So that is good procrastination. That's procrastination for your health, so you can show up in the way that you need to get things done. It is not destructive procrastination. But I think it's important to understand the difference, because there are certainly good ways to distract yourself to come back as a better version of you than to sit and scroll on your phone on social media.
And there's more, I feel like it's easier to fix than it is to create. So when I wrote my book, it'd be very difficult to just sit down and bang out a chapter. But I could read through that chapter and edit it pretty easily.
Yeah,
The tweaks that you have to make and all that jazz.
I always said in my marketing department, I was a better editor than a writer. So give me something to work with, and then I can edit it. But make me sit down and create, and that's so much harder.
It's tough, right? It's looming over your head.
Yeah.
That's funny. I can tell you with the book, I had told my mother-in-law that I was writing a book.
Okay.
And so we would see her every 3-6 months, whatever. And she would ask me, like, how's the book coming along?
Yeah.
And with that question, and she was just making talk, right? It wasn't like I doubt that she really cared that much. But it was one of those, like, I don't want to tell her I'm still working on it. So I want to tell her that I'm making progress of some kind.
Yeah.
It's at the editor, it's at the publisher, I have somebody designing a cover or something like that. I wanted to give her something in response other than I'm working on it.
Right.
Right? It's sitting in the computer. I haven't touched it in months. I don't want to answer that.
Well, how many people have you talked to that are like, oh yeah, I'm writing a book?
Oh my
how's
gosh.
that going?
Hundreds. Yeah. And still there's millions of books that are published, so somebody gets them done. But it's funny that there are a ton that never happen.
So I think it doesn't matter what we procrastinate. There are so many different aspects of our life that we do, but ultimately these are 4 strategies that you might use to help you get through them. And those were: identify when you have the most energy and try to get things done then. Cut your list, create some accountability in your life, and do an after-action review so you can show up better tomorrow.
What works, what doesn't. Thank you so much. This is Diary of a Worthy Pursuit,
where we talk about how to get what you truly want in life and business.